What's up, guys? So I just left Bass Pro Shop. I've never really been in one before, and it's similar to Cabela's in a lot of ways. Guns and hunting and fishing, and you'd think Bass Pro Shop would be mostly fishing, but it's pretty much mostly clothing and then hunting, fishing, camping gear. But I picked up something kind of cool, and I wanted to share it with you guys. Check these out. They're called snap caps. Snap caps are basically bullet-shaped little, I don't know, plastic thingies. Sometimes they're aluminum. These ones are brass on the back where the firing pin is, or where the primer is rather, where the firing pin hits, and then they're plastic. And there's like springs inside. I'm not exactly sure what these do, but I got a set for my revolver. I thought these were kind of cool. I had some snap caps already for a 9mm semi-auto pistol, and I'll show you those as well. So let's take these little snap caps home and do some fake shooting. I'll see you in a bit. All right, guys, back home, I got my snap caps. Oh, kind of glary. There you go. And a couple of pistols. This one right here, oh, this is the Beretta M9. I don't know if you can see that, but this is the Beretta M9, military issued, used in combat. You can see it's a little bit worn. Beretta M9. AKA the 92 FS, the Beretta 92, the M9. This particular Beretta is the M9 A1. It holds 15 rounds in the magazine. We'll safety check it real quick. Empty magazine and empty. This is always awkward to do this on camera. Empty chamber, so we have a safe pistol. Now, since this video is going to be about snap caps and dry firing and practicing with your pistol, we are going to be loading up these two guns. I have a feather on me, look at that. We are going to be loading up these two guns with these snap caps, dummy rounds if you will. And then we have the trusty Rossi snub-nosed revolver, chambered in .38 special. Also, safety check here. We have an empty cylinder. So both of these guns are safe. We are ready to begin. So the M9 chambered in 9mm. You'll also hear 9mm referred to as 9mm Parabellum. And then we know that the .38 special is, let's take these out of the box here real fast. That should not have been so difficult. The .38 special is a considerably longer round, but if you remember from one of my first videos, we talked about the diameter of these two rounds being pretty much exactly the same. Hard to see with the plastic tip, but both of these rounds are very, very similar, if it'll focus, in terms of diameter. Almost identical. So .38 special is going to be these little red guys. Hard to see with the contrast of my lovely leather mat. And the purple guys are the 9mm. There are differences to revolver cartridges versus semi-auto cartridges, and that's why you couldn't put a semi-auto cartridge inside of a revolver. It just wouldn't fit properly. Same goes, a revolver cartridge will not fit in a semi-auto magazine. They have different rims, they have kind of different mechanisms of holding the cartridge together, so they aren't interchangeable. Side note, There was a gun manufactured, I think in the 70s or maybe even earlier than that, that was called the Medusa. And the Medusa was a revolver style handgun that could accept a couple dozen different cartridges, which is cool, but I guess in practice it didn't work very well and they didn't sell very many of them. There were some springs inside the cylinder that allowed it to capture rimless cartridges, which is essentially this 9mm for a semi-auto. It doesn't have the rim, and I know it's hard to see this, guys. It doesn't have the rim that you see on this revolver style cartridge. So when we talk ammunition, there's a lot. There are dozens, if not hundreds of different sizes, calibers, velocities, different amounts of powder. It can get very, very confusing. So we're gonna try to keep it just to these two, 38 Special and 9mm. I'm gonna show you how to load them up and then how to dry fire practice so that you can get some practice pulling the trigger, aiming your sights while you're at home, instead of having to take it to the range every time you want to pull out your pistol to get a little bit of practice in. There is always benefit in practicing handling, holding, holstering, drawing, and firing your gun. So if you have fingers that may be a little bit weak right now because you're new to shooting guns, nothing better you can do than practice pulling the trigger. But what we talked about in the car earlier was that it's not recommended that you fire your gun with nothing in front of the firing pin. The little pin that hits the back of what's called a center fire cartridge. You can see that little circular bit right there in the middle. On a real cartridge, that would be the primer. And when you tap that primer with the firing pin, that's what ignites the primary explosion that ignites the rest of the powder. So, woo! So what we're gonna do, we're gonna load up some of these rounds, and it's probably gonna shake the camera all over the place, but we're gonna load them up. I'm gonna show you a neat little tool that I've got that some people love and some people will pretend to hate because they'll give you a bunch of grief for not loading up your magazines with your thumbs and your fingers. But as far as I'm concerned, if there's a tool to make that easier, I'm all about it. So it's called an auto loader, or some people might refer to it as a speed loader. But for a semi-automatic magazine like this one, jamming those rounds in there, it can be tiring after a while. It can be painful after a little while. And on a new magazine, a stiff spring inside of that magazine makes it really tough, especially when you start getting a few rounds in there. So we're going to talk about those things, and let's just get started. That's my bird. The bird was in one video. Bird's outside, and apparently she's decided she wants to squeak, squeak, squeak. So let me grab that auto loader real quick, and we'll get going. I have a little tool, I guess you could call it a tool, maybe you call it a gadget, that allows for fast and easy loading of most semi-automatic magazines. And it is called, it is called Lulla. I know that's a weird name, but that's what it's called. I didn't name it. And it's a little device that allows you to quickly and more easily load rounds into a semi-auto magazine. And this will do everything from 380 ACP, we showed those in the last video. It's a smaller version of the 9mm, also known as 9mm short, all the way up to a 45 caliber, I believe, in this one little guy here. So lots and lots of different magazines can be loaded up with this little Lulla. My wife got this one for me, and she decided that it was less likely that somebody would steal it at the gun range if she got a pink one. So thank you, wife. So we're gonna load up this 9mm magazine here real fast. Let me show you. Without the up Lulla. So the first round's always the hardest round to get in there. You are always going to see your round kind of pointed at an angle where it's almost pointing up a little. So it's diagonal. It's rarely going to be completely parallel with the magazine. It's always going to have a slight up angle to it. I know it's hard to see. And that's so that it can feed into the chamber. So you push the round in, it goes all the way back, and that's number 1. Now that wasn't too hard. But once you get down to 12, 13, 14, 17 rounds, it can start to get a little bit difficult. So the easiest way, we push down the last round that's in there just a bit with our thumb. Push it down a little, and then follow the back of your next round on top, using force with the other thumb, sliding it up and over. Now, these little things have been beat up quite a bit because they've been loaded and reloaded into magazines hundreds of times at this point. So they're scratched, they're not looking too good. But if you're loading up a brand new round, you see all the missing paint right there, it'll slide nice and easy over the round below it. So we're going to load up these 5. 1, 2, 3, that's 4, and that's 5. And I got a pack of these. I think they were like $12 for a pack of 5. And so now we have a partially loaded 9mm magazine for the Beretta M9. With the Revolver, it's even easier. I open my cylinder. I take one of my snap caps. I insert. Goes in. And I do the rest. So practicing loading your gun will also allow you to get faster in case you were ever in a situation where you needed to reload in an emergency. I don't know. But knowing how to load your gun is important. And now you can see, you see how you can kind of see the rounds peeking out of that cylinder? That's another way of knowing if your revolver is or is not loaded. If you see brass or nickel, you've got either spent shells, meaning they've already been fired, or live rounds in that chamber. So when we go to safety check a gun, oh, holy moly, I have a cylinder full of live rounds. To eject the rounds from a revolver, because they don't fly out like a semi-auto, this little plunger in the front right here, it's called the ejector. I just push that and the rounds come out. So you kind of tilt the gun towards the sky, push the ejector, and the rounds come out. So simple. We'll put them back in. And remember, our finger is always off the trigger. And we now have a revolver loaded with snap caps, ready for practice. Because on this hammer, there is a little pin. I know it's hard to see. That little pin flies forward. On some revolvers, the firing pin's on the inside. This is an older maybe less expensive revolver. So the firing pin, there is a pin inside that this hits, so that this part can be replaceable. But on modern or maybe more expensive revolvers, you'll see the hammer has a flat face. That flat face slams against that firing pin, and it really only has to hit lightly for it to ignite that primer. So we're not going to fire it just yet. So we're going to put that down here, but we're also going to show you on the Beretta, when you load the gun with the magazine, the bullet end of the cartridge is always going to face the muzzle of your gun because the bullet goes through the barrel. And it's not uncommon. You're going to start the wrong way and it doesn't really go in, and then you're going to flip it around and you're going to be like, oh crap. All right, so now we're loaded. On the semi-auto, this gun is not yet ready to fire. On the Revolver, it absolutely is. So just keep that in mind. As soon as you put rounds inside the cylinder of this gun, the gun is ready to be fired. Be careful. Rounds inside of a semi-auto, you still need to load that first round into the chamber. And the way that you do that is everybody's favorite. You rack the slide. On this gun, it's really easy to rack the slide on an M9 because the way that they made it, the safety is ambidextrous. So there's these little nubs on both sides. You literally just pull back. That's what these little serrations are for. Pull back, and you'll see that now it's going to grab that round and it's going to feed it into the chamber. I hope you can see that. So now this gun is ready to fire, and you can even see that the hammer got pulled back when we racked the slide. So this gun is now in single action. It's ready to fire. This gun has a unique feature, well, not unique, but a less common feature, I guess would be a better way to term it. It has what's called a decocker. Get your laughs out, ha ha ha, decocker. So how do we emasculate this gun? Well, we use the decocker. Flip this switch and watch. The hammer goes forward. Now, that scares the bejesus out of people that don't know. Because you see that hammer fly forward and you're going to just assume that that gun's about to go off. And hey, that could honestly happen. So you never want to use that decocker unless your muzzle is pointed in a safe direction. And preferably in a downrange, or if you have some sort of safe bucket situation full of sand or something. A lot of people will have buckets full of sand that they will point their gun towards when they decock or when they pull the trigger, just to ensure that the gun is empty. I don't have that, but these are snap caps, remember? They're not real cartridges. They're not live rounds. So that is how we load these two guns. Pretty easy. The Revolver, in my opinion, is even easier to load than the semi-auto because you don't have to fight that magazine with your thumb. But that's where the up Lulla comes into play. So I know everybody wants to see these snap caps fire, so let's see what they do. I've never shot one of these spring-loaded snap caps before, so let's give it a try. All right, we're pointed in a safe direction, that way, and we're gonna pull the trigger on one of these snap caps. Let's see what it does. I'm gonna go single action. I'm gonna pull the hammer back. It's ready to fire. We are now single action. You see how far back that trigger is, and we'll pull it. All right, so it didn't make a snap. I was hoping it would make a sound. It didn't. I assume the spring is just in there so that it can allow that fake primer to depress a little bit and come back out. And then with this gun, you just pull the trigger. You can pull it again and again and again and again, and it's gonna fire off all 5 of those rounds until you don't have any more live rounds. That's the Revolver. We open up the cylinder, we push the ejector, The spent shells come out and they roll all over the table, and we can load it back up again. With the Beretta, not completely dissimilar. You have your round in the chamber. We can fire, fire, fire. Pow. Now, if there were powder in that cartridge and the explosion took place, the slide would come back and it would eject the empty cartridge. We have to do that for the gun. And the way that we do that is by pulling back the slide. So we'll pull it back, and you could hear and see that snap cap fly out of the gun. Now we're ready to fire again. Right? It ejects again, and we're ready to fire. So that is the basic operation of these two pistols. Let's clean up this mess real quick, and I'll show you the up Lulla. I hope you come back and see us again. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Tell your friends. We got our first couple of comments on a video the other day, which was really exciting. Thank you for the feedback, by the way, commenter. And I will be sure to show some video footage of us shooting the M9 here in the near future, because this is a big-ass gun, and I don't know the history of the gun, but I like to pretend that maybe that was a Marine or somebody that had this gun and they took it to the Middle East and got to shoot some bad guys with it. That'd be kind of cool. But that's pretty much it. If you have ideas for new videos, shoot them down in the comments. I'm totally open to your feedback as well. Shoot those in the comments. And if you liked what you saw, hit subscribe, hit the like button, and I'll see you next time. Peace.